lady from 18.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I too wasn't going to speak, but I feel that there has definitely been a tilt in...
Sometimes you just got to debate, right?
Sometimes you just can't stop yourself. No, I absolutely hear where everybody's coming from. This has been miserable. This has been miserable for absolutely everybody. I hate having had my kids home for 6 months. It's been horrible. They're going blind and stupid, staring at iPads all day long. They haven't exercised. All their soccer's been canceled. It's been terrible. My grandmother passed away 2.5 weeks ago, and I wasn't able to be there with her. It was awful. But I feel like my grievances are minor compared to some of the real fallout from people that I know. My friend's father was a totally healthy 70-year-old man, now dead after having contracted COVID 2 weeks later. The IT guy at my friend's firm in his 40s, no health problems, dead a week after being diagnosed with COVID. One of my daughter's good friends at high school didn't realize he was an asymptomatic carrier, and hung out with his grandfather, who had, other than being older, now dead. My law school roommate's husband contracted COVID, had to be in the ER, said it felt like someone was standing on his chest, and is projected to have lifelong lung damage as a result. It is real, and the fact that the death numbers didn't pan out to be what was originally projected, I think is a sign that the governor's measures worked, and that there really was a problem, that because he put in reasonable precautions, he protected us from a worse situation. A situation that was nevertheless not good. 28,000 infections is still not great, but I think it could have been worse. And this notion that, obviously there's no problem here because the death numbers were lower than projected. What's the expression? It's like throwing away your umbrella during a rainstorm because you're not getting wet. I kind of think that's potentially what we're looking at here. And I think, it's regionalized. I think the approach is regionalized right now because there are some areas of the state that don't have any problems and they don't have restrictions in those areas of the state. But there are some areas of the state that have really big problems, and those areas do have restrictions. That's where we're at right now. Perhaps that's an appropriate place to be at. Perhaps areas that have sky-high infections that are so high that the White House is dialing into our local emergency management calls, perhaps those areas should be able to respond appropriately. There's been a lot of criticism of the gentleman on the second floor. Absolutely nobody in their right mind would shut down businesses as a politician if they weren't being told there was a darn good reason to do so. We all run on the platform of wanting the business community to succeed. Every politician I've ever heard of anywhere runs on the platform of prosperity and jobs, and you'll all do better, and everybody will make more money. I mean, it's just kind of built into the DNA of anybody who's ever run for office. Of course that's what we all want. Nobody would ever, as just a matter of political gamesmanship, just say I'm going to shut everything down and cause giant unemployment. It's political death. Nobody would do that unless they were genuinely in their heart convinced that this is something that they felt they had to do to protect their constituents. Now, the emergency order is pretty contained in its impact right now. It does not require universal shutdown of schools. It does not require universal shutdown of almost every category of businesses. Movie theaters are open, restaurants, even in the parts of the state that have restrictions, almost everything is open. It's pretty limited in its impact right now, but I do have some confidence that the gentleman on the second floor is listening to he gets a lot of data. He gets big data dumps every day from top experts. The last thing he wants, I think, is to unduly shut down businesses. It's the last thing I want. It's the last thing anybody wants. It's horrible. Nobody wants to see job losses. Absolutely. I got 4 kids. Believe me, there is nobody in the world that wants those kids back in school more than I do. It's terrible having them home. But my daughter wasn't able to go to college this year. It's just bad news all around. But the only thing worse than this situation would be to have them dead. And I can't remember a time when I knew 4 people personally that died from something in a matter of a couple months. I've never known 4 people that died of the flu in 2 months. I've never known 4 people that died of a cold in 2 months. I've never even known 4 people who died of cancer in 2 months. I mean, maybe I have that, but this is pretty unprecedented. I've never, 180,000 Americans dead is not trivial. That's almost 4 times the entire death toll of the Vietnam War that has, transpired in less than 6 months. So I do think this is a very serious matter. I don't think the governor is trying to do an undue power grab. I think this pains him greatly, having had to take the measures that he took. And I think some of those measures have saved us from a much worse death toll. And again, I think that the emergency order right now has been scaled back to such a minor level that there are really very, very few things that are happening as a result. Very, very few kids. There are no school closures that are mandated as a result of the emergency order right now. And there are very, very few businesses that are closed right now as a result of the governor's order. The upshot of it is, as has been noted, that it does make us eligible for $117 million of aid for our hospitals and for PPE. Totally get that this is all borrowed money. I don't like that. I love the fact that Idaho has a balanced budget amendment. I don't believe in debt spending, but I do think that there are, limited times in true emergencies where you have to engage in debt spending to save, when you're in World War II, you got to borrow some money to get through it. I think there's some limited times when debt spending is appropriate, and then you try to make up for it later. So I don't love this cycle of eternal debt we're in, but I do think we're in some really dire straits right now, and that we could be, I think this is one of those very limited times maybe when some debt spending is appropriate, in short. I don't think it is on a global level forever, but I think right now maybe it is. But the upshot is, everybody across America is taking this money, and it's doing some real good. And it is enabling us to get PPE and to keep our hospitals afloat and to keep some very urgent things in place. And so I'm very reluctant with the economic straits we're in right now to just turn our noses up at $117 million that could be pretty pivotal in pulling us out of this and in helping our citizens avoid those higher death rates and emerge from this safely. So I do think, that is of some concern to me. I don't know that we're in a place right now to be just turning down $117 million for critical needs. So for all those reasons, and I do share some of the constitutional concerns that have been expressed, I don't think this falls within our constitutional mandate. I will be giving this a red light.
Is there further debate?